Hello, YouTube. Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. All right, so thought I'd switch gears a little bit today and talk about one of my favorite deities in the Vedic tradition, which is Narasimha. Narasimha means the divine man lion. I guess we should start talking about what Nara means. So Nara means human, but not in the sense of just the average person walking down the street. It means the fully evolved human, what we are destined to be. You know, when we live to our highest potential, we are Nara. It is also the prefix to the idea in the Hindu tradition of the one source. You know, some people are more comfortable with the one God. So there isn't any kind of similarity between that and the monotheist one God. It just means that there's a ultimate source for everything. So the soul of the universe, and that is called Narayana. And so that symbol of Nara is there, which means that trying to say that, you know, Nara, humans are God. So it's very similar to the Germanic concept of humans who are called Man, which are divine mind, and the moon. What does the moon do? The moon reflects the soul. So there's this understanding that, you know, even in the Abrahamic tradition, which does draw on some pre-Abrahamic polytheist understandings, even in the Abrahamic tradition, you know, God has made man in his image. So this is throughout throughout the mindset of all humans when it comes to religion, is that humans have some divine potential. So Narasimha, Simha is lion, and so Narasimha is not just a half man, half lion. It means the divine man in the form of a lion. And this is a cool picture of him that I got off the web. Now, what you can't see at the bottom is that his claws, his hands and his claws, are tearing open the stomach of a demon called Hiranyakashipu, I believe is his name. And so I'm not going to get into the whole mythology surrounding this, although it's really important. It's really important and it's extremely interesting. But I've already done that. So again, guys, you want to get the most out of my channel? Put the time and effort into watching my videos. I have a video besides this one about Narasimha, and I go into depth for a long period of time talking about the myth surrounding him. So, long story short, there's this kid who is, you know, we still have this same story of the gods, the demons. They're not demons, the Asuras. So bear in mind, Asura is not like a Christian demon or the devil. An Asura is the earthly powers. Asura means power. That's where the Aesir in the Norse tradition, Aesir means the celestial gods. Well, it used to mean that in the Vedic tradition also. Indra was an Asura. But there was some shift in the definition of words, and Asura became equal to the idea of the Vanir. In fact, a little worse, to be honest. So in the Norse tradition, you have the Aesir, the celestial deities, and the Vanir, who are the terrestrial deities, the deities of time and space and magic and fertility and all that kind of stuff. And so in the Vedic tradition, the term Asura, which used to mean the same thing, it used to mean the celestial deities, it then became shifted and became the word for what we would call the Vanir in the Norse tradition. So they're not demons in that sense. The Vedic tradition, especially the Hindu tradition, has made an even bigger divide between the celestial deities and the terrestrial deities. But the Asuras are the terrestrial deities, but they're looked down upon in the Hindu tradition. They're looked upon as almost as demons, almost as evil. So there's this spiritual twist on it where the Asuras are, are seen that way. Now, so the story goes, and again, go watch the other video to get the whole thing. But the story goes that that a divine sage the soul of a divine sage was put into the body of an Asura female, and her husband Hiranyakashipu ended up taking over the whole universe. So in the Vedic tradition, you've got this constant fight between the Asuras and the Devis, the celestial gods. And the celestial gods are trying to keep the Asuras from taking over the universe, because then it will be focused on physical, non-spiritual things. So the Asuras are seen as very selfish and very greedy, and they're seen as very destructive in those ways. In any case, for reasons I won't get into, the soul of a divine sage was put into the belly of the wife of the then king of the universe, Hiranyakashipu. And so this Asura child is born, who's named Prahalada. Now, Prahalada is a worshipper of Vishnu. Vishnu is the soul. So in our bodies we have a trinity. We have, in the Norse tradition, Odin, the third eye, Vili, the navel center, power, willpower, and Ve, the soul. Ve, Vishnu, see what I mean? Same root. And in the Hindu tradition, you have Shiva and Brahma and Vishnu. So Vishnu is the only one of the three that actually incarnates into human beings. What does that mean? It means that the soul, our soul, reincarnates into humans. So Vishnu represents our soul. So whenever you're worshiping Vishnu, you're worshiping the soul. Whether it's Krishna or whether it's Buddha. Buddha is an incarnation of the soul, or an avatar of the soul. Although he was, of all the avatars, he was the only one that was actually a human. So he was an actual human who ate meat, by the way, any vegans out there, Buddhist. The Buddha ate meat, and he died of all kinds. I mean, you'll be happy to hear this. He died a pretty horrible death, physical disease, and all that. He himself never claimed to be anything else. It's his followers later that turned him into all these other things. But he's the only one. He's the only avatar of Vishnu that was actually a human being. The rest are mythological beings. Krishna, Narasimha, Rama, all the rest of them. So whenever you're worshiping Vishnu, you're worshiping an aspect of the soul. So Narasimha is the Mars vibration, warfare. So Narasimha is when the soul goes to war. And Narasimha is seen as extremely ferocious, incredibly ferocious. In fact, so ferocious that everybody, all of the gods are, when it comes to, nobody messes with Narasimha. And I'll talk about what actually had to happen in the myth for him to calm down. So Prahalada is born to Hiranyakashipu, the current Asura in the myth who's running the world and has defeated the higher gods. And he demands that his son worship him as God. And his son says, "You're my father, and I am devoted to you, and I'm faithful to you, but I can only worship Vishnu." Now this, Hiranyakashipu does not want to hear this. And so he does all kinds of things. He tortures his kid. He does all kinds of horrible things, trying to kill him and torture him and all kinds of other things, trying to get him to renounce Vishnu and worship Prahalada. So we can look at this as, within the human being, the battle between focus. What I teach. What I teach is that your soul comes here with two main things to accomplish. The first thing it comes to accomplish is to experience and fulfill all of its own desires. And the way you know you are following the desire of your soul is that when you think about it, it gives you this incredible joy. Now, going after it, people say, well, if it's my soul desire, why isn't it easy to do? Well, that's the second part. The second part is that you came here to do. The first is to follow the joy of your soul. The second is to overcome all of the karmic challenges that will arise when you go after your soul desire. So let me make it clear. People want, again, I understand, people get upset. If it's my soul desire, why isn't it easy? Well, because you have all kinds of lessons that you came here to learn to help you overcome all of the karmic things that you have created that block you from your own soul. You've created it. So you can look at it that way. As I tell people, people choose to be here. People choose their challenges in life. So if you're born, in a third world country with, only, one leg and one arm, and life is really tough for you, instead of saying, why would God do that to me? Well, God didn't do that to you. You chose to do it. Instead of saying, why would I do that to myself? Instead, look at it as an understanding that your soul says, listen, I keep running into these same issues when it comes to fulfilling my desires, and I got to overcome that. So in this lifetime, I'm going to give myself some challenges that are finally going to be so intolerable that I will stop being a victim. And I gave the example of Stephen Hawking, the physicist who's no longer with us. And what an incredibly brave person he must have been to have that horrific disease that he had, where he was just, in a wheelchair, couldn't even speak. But he had this amazing mind, and so all he had left was his mind. And he used it. And he used it for the betterment of all people. And so that, and when we see him, he seems to have, I don't know what it was like for him, but he seems to present this experience of him being grateful and having a good sense of humor and, all of that. He was obviously following his soul desire to be a physicist. So whatever challenges you have, I hate when people say just do that, but whatever challenges you have, the way to overcome it is to stop feeling sorry for yourself and say, well, I chose this for some reason. I don't understand at the moment. What's the lesson here? How can I learn from this? And then amazingly, you can overcome your challenges. And, I've done that in my life. I've never had it so good. My life is really, really good, and it was not good for most of my life. I would say the first 50 years of my life were extremely, extremely challenging on all kinds of different levels. So Narasimha is the soul when the soul goes to war. So again, the two things you come here to do, you come here to first become aware of and then follow the joy of your soul. And then as you follow the joy of your soul, all of your karmic blocks will come up having to do with your ego, your narcissism, your false humility. These things will all come up in all kinds of different ways. But one of the main ways it will come up is through other people's agendas and opinions of you. And so, the hardest thing to do is when you're going after your soul desire is to disappoint your parents, disappoint your friends, disappoint your spouse, disappoint the people in your life that are going to stand up and try and stop you from following your soul desire. And that is very challenging, and it kills people. One of the ways people get cancer is that they can't overcome that. And it creates a resentment and a fury within the soul that ends up destroying them physically. Cancer is one way that happens. So, Narasimha represents the fury of the soul. When the soul is denied its joy, it becomes furious. And you can either allow that fury of the soul to be focused where it belongs, which is to allow you to go after your truth in life, or it'll be turned inward on you, and you'll end up destroying yourself. And this is what the symbolism is in this story. So Prahalada represents you. Narasimha represents the soul inside of you. Hiranyakashipu represents your ego, your false humility, your false spirituality. This is one of the most destructive things about Christianity. You can't live for yourself. You can't go do things for your own glory, because you must give glory to God. You must carry your cross. Well, that's great that you want to go be a dancer, but how does that, that's not a real job. That's not, in other words, same kind of thing. You need to live for God. That's not helping God. Right? So Hiranyakashipu represents that Jehovah type of inverted ego. I am that I am. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. You can't have any glory. I must have all the glory. I created the universe for my pleasure. I created human beings for my pleasure. That's what Hiranyakashipu represents. So there's this final confrontation where, I can't remember exactly, forgive me, you can watch my other video about it. There's this final confrontation where Hiranyakashipu is trying to get his son Prahalada to worship him. And Prahalada is saying, I can't. I love you, Dad, but I can't. I can't lie to you. There is only one God, that is Vishnu, and I have to worship him. And he says, well, if Vishnu is God, then let him, and I can't remember exactly what it was, let him come out of this pillar. And I think he does something like he bangs on the pillar in the house. And out of the pillar bursts through Narasimha, this giant man lion, and you can't see it in this picture, but he takes Hiranyakashipu and puts him on his lap and then tears open his stomach, killing him violently. And so it represents the soul, the column represents the spinal column and the body. And Narasimha bursting out of the column represents the soul bursting out of the confines of its Kundalini ego cage. Now you didn't know that. You didn't know that Kundalini was also a cage. Because Kundalini is the energy about your ego, your identity. And so it represents the soul bursting even beyond the limits of Kundalini. You could say that it's the Kundalini awakening to its true self. But it means going beyond the idea of the limited ego. It also represents, here's Prahalada, who wants his father's love and wants to be appreciated, but he wants the love of his soul even more. So every time that Hiranyakashipu tells him to worship him as God, he says, I can't. I have to worship my soul. I have to worship Vishnu, to worship my spiritual essence. And so that's that continued testing and him continuously refusing to abandon his own soul is when the anger of the soul. The fury of the soul breaks through. Now, this doesn't mean that if your mother or your father or somebody else comes to you and says, you should be whatever, you should be a bricklayer and you want to be a ballet dancer, it doesn't mean that if you say, I'm going to go be a ballet dancer, that your soul is going to burst out of your chest and destroy your parents. It represents the battle within the self, that you destroy within you the lower self. Now, the symbolism is undeniable. Narasimha has his claws in the belly of Hiranyakashipu, and he's tearing his guts out, literally pulling his entrails out. So it's really quite violent and disgusting if you were to look at it. It's like a horror movie. But it represents the destruction of the lower aspect of the navel center. What is the navel center? The navel center is the chakra that has to do with identity. And when your navel center is open, when it has achieved its full fruition, it means that you have a very strong sense of self. Because this is also where warriors, they call somebody who has guts. It means that their navel center, it means they have a strong navel center. They're willing to sacrifice their lives for others, but they're also alpha males that will end up becoming CEOs. And if the navel center is out of balance, then you have a cruel dictator. So here, Narasimha is tearing open the navel center of this evil demon that is torturing his son, not allowing his son to follow his soul. It could be as simple as just saying, a father that didn't allow his son to follow his dream. It's just that simple. But it happens within us. And, I've seen this. I've experienced it in my life. I've seen it everywhere I've gone, as I've been alive, is that what happens to you when you're a kid and your dynamic with your parents will last with you a lifetime. And it's whether or not you can overcome the challenge on an unconscious psychological level to separate from your parents and be your own person. A true parent who loves you unconditionally, their whole focus is going to be to give you the ability to love yourself. That's when you find people who, whose parents supported them, and they go out and they can seemingly accomplish anything they want. No matter how many times they fail, they pick themselves up and they just go, you know what, I can do whatever I want. That's okay. Or they accomplish something and then they get attacked. They go, you know what, that's okay. They can say whatever they want. I know who I am. And then it's because they have, that's the ideal. They have a healthy internal parent within them that parents them and says that to them because that's how their parents treated them. So that's when somebody has good parents. Most of us have imperfect parents to some degree. Some of us have really awful parents who had no idea what the hell they were doing. And they projected all of their insecurities and were really, and those are the people who end up later in life really sick. They end up really sick and miserable. It's because their soul is furious with them. It's furious with them for not allowing, your soul. Imagine your soul has taken a ride in this avatar, in this three-dimensional world, but the personality, the body and the brain and the personality won't let the soul experience itself. And it's stuck there in your body for the rest of, your natural life. And it's furious because you won't let it experience itself. So that fury that you see, wrong one. That fury that you see with Narasimha destroying, you can't see what he's doing, but tearing apart the oppressor there. That's the soul finally winning the battle against the block in your navel center towards your true identity. Now let's talk about all of that. So I've shared that story and some of the significations, but then what ends up happening is that, according to some of the mythology, Narasimha is just implacable. I mean, you cannot calm him down. He's furious. He's, when he's reached that level of fury, he's just still crazed with fury. And so the only thing, in at least one of the mythology, the only thing that calms him down is Lakshmi, his wife. Vishnu's wife is Lakshmi. So Lakshmi comes to him and Lakshmi calms him down. What does this mean? Well, from an astrological perspective, the planet that balances out Mars is Venus. So what is Mars? Mars is going to war against negativity. The soldier, sleeps on the ground. He, eats whatever he can find. He doesn't own anything. He's all about sacrificing himself for the king or for his family or for his people or whatever it is. And he's ruthless, and he's all about conquering, territory for his people. And so Mars is that energy, and this is the Mars aspect of Vishnu, the soul, the soul going to war. And so the thing that calms down the anger of the soul is Lakshmi. Lakshmi represents the fulfillment of desires. So if you have overcome the battle of doing what other people want you to do or be, and you've overcome your own ego, your own narcissism, which limits you, because narcissists desperately want other people's approval and love. When you've overcome that within yourself, and now you're free to go after what you want, the only thing that's going to calm down that fury in your soul is the actual fulfillment of your desires. So you go back to the compass. The compass for your soul is joy. The way you know where your soul is telling you to go is by finding that which gives you the greatest joy. For me, it literally is the compass. I mean, I'm here where I am now, specifically, like this is where I want to be for the foreseeable rest of my life. I mean, I can't imagine wanting to live anywhere else. I don't know how many people can say that. Maybe a lot of people can say that. A lot of people just sort of live wherever. This is exactly. There's one spot on the map. This is it. I found it. And so literally my joy has been my compass. It tells me exactly physically where to go. But it also represents the compass of what you do with your life. For me, as I've said, your perfect career is when the universe pays you money for being your authentic self. And I also say never, if you make money doing what you would do anyway. Take your hobby. People say, oh, that's my hobby. I need to have a job so I can afford to do my hobby. Well, I think that's crap. Turn it around. Figure out how to turn your hobby into money. I fully believe everybody can do that. So that's how you use your joy as a compass. But the reason why that, at least in one of the myths, Lakshmi is the only thing that can calm Narasimha down is because you need the focus of the anger. The fury is the soul not getting its desires met. And when you don't, here's karma. You want to know what the definition of karma is? Karma is stuff that's built up that gives you challenges. It's real simple. Karma is the negative result of you denying your soul its desire. Your soul came here in this three-dimensional reality to experience something and to fulfill a desire. When you deny that out of false spirituality, out of false humility, out of false ego, out of fear, you create karma, which you have to pay out. So your next life is going to be filled with a bunch of crap you got to deal with because you refused to listen to your soul. You wanted other people's approval. It would have been as if Prahalada had, out of fear and out of a need to be loved by his father, said, okay, Father, I know that you're not the real God, but I'll worship you just so that you can love me. I saw this when I was a born-again Christian. Um, there's a lot of born-again Christians who really just kind of, it's kind of a weird sort of hell where they really don't understand their beliefs and their religion, and they sort of do it, and it's kind of who they are, and they identify it, and yeah, Jesus saved me, and they go to church, but they really don't kind of understand what the hell it's all about, and they really don't care. They just want to be part of their community or part of their family. But when I went to Bible college, Biola, somebody, heard me say Biola, and said Loyola is a Catholic university, and I said no, it's Biola. I went to Biola, Biola University in La Mirada, California, and you had a lot of kids coming straight out of high school from religious families, and they'd show up for college, their first freshman year, just all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and again, they'd come from a religious family. Yeah, they've been indoctrinated. Yeah. But when you get into that university, that's when you really get indoctrinated, and then you start going to these classes that just open up the Bible and smash into you, how screwed you are and all that. And those kids that came in with the bright eyes, by the end of those 4 years, they had big bags under their eyes, and they had this crazed look in their eyes. You ever seen that? You ever seen that in born-again Christians? The ones that you can tell are just really in conflict. They're very nice people. Hi, how are you? And they want to be nice, but there's this crazed look in their eye. I saw that throughout that was one of the things that got me out of the religion, is I saw that. And not everybody's like me. I was constantly questioning everything and researching everything. And by the end, I was like the pain in the ass that nobody wanted to be around. And there was like 2 or 3 of us, and people would sit down and we would talk about, why do you believe that? And and I hadn't rejected Christianity yet, but people had such a hard time being around me. One guy even looked at me and said, "You remind me of Solomon. You test everything out, but I wouldn't want to be you." People just are so afraid. And a lot of it has to do with being, just having your parents' love in your own mind, even after your parents are dead. My brother's still waiting around for my mom and dad to love him. It's too late. Parents are dead. So, I don't know if I said everything I wanted to say, but I'll open it up for questions if there are any. So, Alekia, I haven't looked at your question yet. Because, my friend, you ask such superficial questions sometimes. What does it mean to have Mercury, Moon, and Sun in the 7th house in my horoscope? It means you need to get a reading. I'm not going to give you an astrological reading here. I don't have time to do that. You want to get a full-blown reading? Go to astrology.thunderwizard.com, and you can buy a reading and take a look at it. That's not enough information for me, by the way. It's not nearly enough information. I need to look at everything. H. Warkall says one thing that I agree with. Again, he's not giving the full context, but when I'm assuming when you don't follow through with your soul desire and your soul becomes furious, and then you take it out on the people you love. That's true. And it's one of the things I wanted to talk about, which I didn't, is shame. Shame, people, what is the worst thing? What is the cause of all the evils in the world? It's not hate. It's not ignorance. It's shame. What is shame? Shame is self-directed negativity. Shame is when you hate your own existence. And somebody, a popular thing to say is, you're either going towards love or towards fear. I don't like that too much because love, there are so many people that think that they're following love and they're really just hardcore codependent. You know, people can't, a lot of people can't differentiate between guilt and devotion. They can't tell the difference between love and need. And so there's a lot of people running around thinking that they're full of love and light when in reality they're full of dysfunctional, codependent clinginess and neediness and unconscious self-hatred and shame and all that kind of stuff. So I don't like that. I also don't think it's true unless we're talking about love of the self and love of the soul. So you're either going in one, there's pretty much only two directions you can go toward. You're either going toward following the love that your soul has for its own experience, or you're going towards fear. So underneath hate is fear. Because now Narasimha represents healthy anger also. So the great thing about, this is one of the things I love about polytheism. The great thing about it is that there's no holding back. There's no spiritualizing it. Narasimha is absolutely, totally beside himself with rage. And that means that the soul can experience rage. And so people think that being spiritual is not having your negative feelings. Well, this is one instance where we see the way to be the most spiritual is to be full of rage, ruthless rage. Now, this is a spiritual thing, it's not a physical thing, and you don't, I'm not advocating any kind of harm or anger or violence toward anything or anybody else. But you have to be willing to die for your soul to achieve its happiness. And sometimes, anger is very healthy. You're driving down the street, and if somebody, cuts you off and clips your car and you almost crash, there's going to be a point where you're going to feel rage. Somebody cuts you off or slams on their brakes, you're going to have rage. That rage is because that fire is trying to get you to protect yourself from possible harm. So when you have anger, it means that you feel that there is a threat to your life, even if that is on a spiritual or an emotional level. The other thing is that your life depends upon you following through with your soul desire. In my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, that is in there because it's a commandment. That book is all about following your soul desire. You should get it. It's a tiny little book, doesn't cost a whole lot, but if you can master that book, you can master anything. I forgot what I was saying. Something about soul desire and whatever. Anyway, I think you get my point. So the rage of Narasimha is the soul that is not being allowed to experience its own joy. And that represents, there is a time where you have the right to be angry. Now that's just a feeling. It doesn't mean you have to do anything about it. Doesn't mean, sometimes you do need to say something to somebody. Sometimes you do need to let them know that they're making you angry. In fact, when I'm in a relationship with a woman that ideally my partner has the ability to tell me when I've made her angry. Or, and then we talk about it, and then we can determine whether or not that's her issue or whether I did something. Whether I accidentally stepped on her toes or whether I acted out of my unconscious selfishness and was harmful or hurtful to her. She should be able to say, you did or you said that, and that made me feel really angry towards you. Anybody that can do that, I'll marry him on the spot. Because if somebody can talk about their feelings and own them and come to me with them, then I know that we can work through anything. It's when you don't talk about your feelings. I've shared this story many times, but I'll share it again. This must have been almost 30 years ago, and I was dating some girl who was not all that conscious, looking back on it. And we started going to therapy. I took her to my therapist, and she was saying in there, Mike is really difficult. He's really challenging, and you know, I never fought like this with my ex-boyfriend. To which the therapist responded, "That's why you're not with him, because you never fought with him. Because fighting is all about, learning how to take each other's boundaries and learn how to find a common ground so that you can both merge together." So having anger is a very healthy thing. How you express it, that's a whole other issue. There's nothing spiritual about hiding your anger or stuffing it down. That's shame. Shame is stuffing down your rage. Let's see. So salacious infamy, do me a favor, write question. We're okay because there's not a whole lot of people on, there's not a lot of questions, but when it's full of stuff, I don't know what you're going to ask. So write the word question so I don't miss it. So, do you think anger can be channeled into healing in some form by using it to break out of negative personality patterns? Well, you're overthinking it. You don't have to channel it. Just, why are you angry? What is it that's making you angry? That it just comes down to that. I was married to a woman. We were together for 10 years, married for 4. She's now my ex-wife. It didn't work out. And she was very bad news for me. And I was full of all kinds of physical pain. I had neck pain, back spasms, spasms. I had my knee was swelled up like a balloon. I had sciatica, and tendonitis, and I was just a wreck. I was in so much pain. And when I divorced her, because she just didn't want me to do all the things that I really wanted to do, and so I decided it was more important for me to live my life and be happy than to try and meet her, because no matter how hard I tried, I could not meet her, and I was unable to give her. There were things that she wanted that I was just unable to give her. And part of it is it kept getting worse and worse and worse because I felt so trapped. Now, that was my doing. I chose to be in that relationship with somebody who wanted me to be different than I was. But if you were to talk to me, I would have, you would have seen me be very nice and compliant, and I was very nice and compliant with her, and at least to my memory anyway. But on an internal level, my soul was furious with me. And that's where all the physical pain was coming from. So when I figured out what it is I wanted to do, which was all the things that she didn't want me to do, and astrologically now, I can go on and I can show you where that is, because astrologically you can find where your spouse is in your chart and how they're affecting you. And as it turns out, she was, it was my karma that my first wife was going to be the absolute worst thing in my life. That's my own thing that I had to go through. But when I finally decided that I was going to do all the things that I wanted to do for myself, she flipped out, destroyed the relationship. And when I started doing all the things that I wanted to do, all of the physical symptoms went away, which meant that my soul wasn't angry with me anymore. That means that I wasn't furious. So I had a lot of guilt. I was staying with her out of guilt. Guilt is repressed anger. Anybody who thinks that being guilty is spiritual, and I feel so guilty, I got to do things that other people want, not that I want, that's anger turned inward. And eventually that anger will either explode like Narasimha in your life, you saying, screw all of you, I'm going to go do what I want, you don't have to like it. Or it's going to explode internally in the form of some kind of disease. That's my experience anyway. So I don't think you need to think of sedacious infamy. I don't think you need to think it through that hard. Just go do the things you want to do. Just determine all the things that you're not that your soul wants you to do that you're not letting yourself do out of some misplaced guilt or responsibility. And just go do what you want. And then, like Lakshmi going to Narasimha to calm him down, your soul will calm down, and whatever negative things could, because rage isn't just physical illness. Rage, internal unconscious rage, will also show up as poverty. It will show up as drug addiction, as destructive relationships, bad jobs. I mean, anything in your external environment, which includes your physical health, is going to be the result of your internal state. Now, there have been times in my life where I have been consciously full of anger, where I've been consciously full of sadness and despair and all kinds of negative feelings, and my health has been great, and my life externally has been good also. So the false spirituality, which says that just smile and just focus on the positive. In other words, don't do anything to change your life. Just focus on the positive. That's pseudo spirituality. And there are a lot of people, like I talked about the crazy look in the Christian's eyes. There are some of them that really are just like crazy. Welcome, praise the Lord. And they talk a good game and they smile and they hug you, but you can just feel the rage just oozing out of them. So that's unconscious. So you want to be conscious of it. But there are times when you can have all kinds of horrible feelings and you will be healthy and successful. And so how you feel isn't necessarily a gauge of your spirituality. All right, so let's see. Now you're talking about showing your anger to others, and I'm not really talking about necessarily showing it. If somebody's in your life and they're constantly pissing you off, then the question is, should they be in your life? Communicating your feelings to people you care about and you love, that's a whole other thing. But, salacious infamy, instead of focusing on all these ancillary things, the point is I want you to focus on making your soul happy and doing those things that make your soul happy. This whether or not you have conflict about it with other people is sort of something that will or won't happen. It's not really the point. Although I get what you're saying. You're learning how to communicate. Let's see. Ganunga is going to... So, again, Sedacious, you have Mars retrograde. In what? In Vedic astrology or Western astrology? Because they're completely different, and Western astrology is off by 24 degrees. In what house? All that stuff. You need more than just that. That's not enough info. I recommend getting a reading if you haven't had one already. Ganunga Greg brings up a good point. He says, remember the demon's desire to control. He can't be killed at day or night, in the sky or on earth, by an animal or a human. So one of the things that comes out of that's part of the mythology, is that's why he was invincible. And so at twilight, Narasimha burst out of the column, and he wasn't human, and he wasn't God, and he wasn't, he was a combination of all these things. So, in other words, there's always a way out, no matter how difficult it is. And when people come to me for a career consultation, and I ask all the questions and help them find out what their soul desire is, lots of times they'll give me all kinds of reasons about why they can't do it. And on paper, they're right. There's all kinds of reasons why it's impossible. But your soul has the ability to achieve anything it wants. And bear in mind, the assumption that I'm giving, and it's good to review the assumption, is that your soul is God. And your soul achieving its desires is what the universe needs to evolve. If you don't live to your soul's desire, you are denying the universe an aspect of its own evolution. So when you are following your true soul desire, the universe must give you all of the resources you need in order to achieve your desire. So even if things on paper are impossible, and I've been in this position many, many times, where I've said, you know, that's what I want. I don't know how I'm going to get it, but I'm going to get it, and I'm going to make that my priority. And even if it kills me, I'm going to get it. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. When you have that kind of an attitude, the universe and your soul team up, and you magically get all kinds of things and all the resources. And you know, there's a video that I've shared on here before about maybe you guys know it, about a paratrooper who his knees were shot, and he ended up had to walk around on crutches, and he was really overweight, and he really wanted to get healthy again, and so he went to all these different yogis trying to get somebody to teach him, to help him, and they all said, you know, I can't help you. And then one guy took him on and trained him in yoga, and by the end of it, I mean, the guy was like, you know, something like really overweight, like 350 pounds or something ridiculous, really like obese, and couldn't even walk without crutches. And then you see him struggle. Then by the end, he's svelte, he's ripped, and he's running at full speed in front of the camera, and you know, doing, you know, and it's because he had that attitude. He had that warrior mentality of, I'm gonna get healthy or I'm gonna die trying, and I don't know how. I know it's impossible, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And because it was his soul desire, the universe gave him, and his body gave him everything he needed. So sedacious infamy, again, I'm not going to give astrology readings on here. Western astrology, I strongly recommend that you get a Vedic reading. Western astrology is off by 24 degrees. It's inaccurate. Sorry to say that. I know it's going to piss off people. People are really attached to their Western astrology. But it's an inaccurate calculation of the sky. So you have to look at the sidereal zodiac, not the tropical. So I would drop all of that. You don't know that Mars is retrograde in your 6th house in Leo. It might not be. It's probably retrograde, but it may not be in Leo or the 6th house. So whatever it is you think you're looking at in your chart is going to be completely different than what you think it is. All right. Yeah, I don't see any more questions here. So, how long have we been talking? Yeah, almost an hour. So, what's going on here? Lockdown.thunderwizard.com. $3,214 worth of free stuff from me. All of my streaming videos and courses I am giving away for free. All of them. The only thing that I can't give away are DVDs and books and subscriptions. Those things I don't have power over. Otherwise, I'd give them to you away for free. Lockdown.thunderwizard.com. The only thing that you pay for in that is 5 services with me that you get through Skype. So you'll work with me for, you know, maybe 2 hours or maybe more, depending on, you know, how deep we get into those services. But $3,214 of everything else, including Vedic astrology teaching and certification. Thunderwizard.com, that is the subscription site. If you want to show love for the channel, you can go and subscribe there at whatever level you want. You will have access to, I don't even know how many thousands of hours of videos and teachings that I don't teach on here because I get very in depth over there. Courses.thunderwizard.com if you want to see everything, all the stuff I have, my books, everything. But again, most of that stuff is going to be on the lockdown package. So I recommend that, because when things get back to normal, which they will, I know it doesn't seem like it, especially in the US. I hear things are really chaotic over there. Things are going to get back to normal here in Australia and New Zealand very quickly. But when things start getting back to normal, lockdown is going to no longer be available. I'll go back to normal stuff. Of course, subscribe and hit the bell button. All right, let's see. Somebody threw out $5. Thank you, Sedacious Infamy. He threw down $5. He says, thank you for your wisdom and insights. It's very much appreciated. I enjoy your videos and always look forward to the next one. Thank you. That's a very kind thing to say, and I appreciate that. All right, is that it? That's it. That's it for me, guys. All right. I look forward to... What is that? Why is that doing that? Let me see if I click on that. What happens? Oh, okay. That's it for me, guys. All right. I'm going to go lie down. I surfed my brains out yesterday. I tell you, the weather here is so amazing. Gosh, I wish I could show you how beautiful it is. But I'm tired, so I'm going to go watch Netflix and take a nap and get ready for the week. Oh, Ricky Green. Wow. Ricky Green threw down $5. Thank you, sir. Wait, Stormageddon, Dark Lord of All has a question. Question. What direction on the thunder wheel is best for worshipping Ganesha? Northeast. Right off the top of my head, because Ganesha is Ketu. So if you want to really understand why Ganesha is the Lord of Beginnings, it's because he's Ketu. After Ketu has done his destructive work of destroying the illusion, then you have to be reborn in the illusion. That's why Ganesha is new beginnings, and that's why he has the head of an elephant on a boy's body, because it represents the boy had his head cut off. And there's a whole myth about that, how Shiva, out of his third eye, burnt his head off. But so he represents the death that Ketu brings, and then the rebirth. So that's why he's Ketu. But Ketu is best placed in the northeast, which is the highest spirituality. All right. So there's the answer to that question. All right, that's it. All right, I'm off to go relax or something. Thanks for showing up. Talk to you guys later.